Send me $1,600 for prom. Mom says you've got enough. My sister's kid messaged me. I answered, earn it. Minutes later, my sister wrote, pay or you're cut off. That night, I canceled their mortgage autopay. By 8:05 a.m., they were blowing up my phone. But when I read the message, I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I couldn't believe the audacity. It was like watching someone walk into your house, take your wallet off the counter, and then ask if you had change for a 20. Send me $1,600 for prom. Mom says, you have plenty. That was it. No greeting, no explanation, just a casual demand from Caleb, my sister's 17-year-old golden child, as if I were the family's personal funding department. And the part that really hit me, the part that made my stomach go cold, was the second sentence. Mom says, you have plenty, so Melanie was behind it. It wasn't even the money. I could have covered it without blinking. It was the assumption, the entitlement, the complete lack of boundaries from a kid I barely even speak to unless there's a price tag attached, and from a sister who somehow managed to rewrite history in her head every few months so that I owed her something new. It wasn't that long ago, maybe 10 months, that I'd paid Caleb's first-year college tuition, 15 grand. Everyone begged me, my parents, my uncle, even Melanie's husband, Drew. They all said it was just a one-time thing, that he needed a fresh start, that Melanie had done her best, but life was hard and I could help. So why wouldn't I? I did it quietly. No strings attached. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't be the last time. So, this felt like a turning point. I texted back one line. Work for it. I didn't explain, didn't it? I just hit send and put my phone down. And I swear, for the first time in years, I felt like I'd finally taken my hand off the hot stove. Not 5 minutes later, Melanie texted me herself. Pay or you're cut off. Just like that. No context. Like she thought she still had that kind of power over me. As if my world would shatter if she suddenly stopped speaking to me. It was wild. I sat there rereading it, feeling something snap into place in my brain. Not anger, just clarity. That night, I logged into my bank account and canceled the auto payments for their mortgage. I'd been covering it for over half a year after Melanie said Drew had some kind of emergency surgery and couldn't work. I never saw a hospital bill, never asked for one. I just paid it because that's what I'd always done. Melanie needed. I gave. That was the rhythm of our relationship. At 8:05 the next morning, I had 5 missed calls. Melanie, Drew, P. Even one from my mom. I let them all go to voicemail. Then came the texts. First confusion, then insults. Caleb said I was just another fake aunt who doesn't support dreams. Melanie accused me of abandoning family. Drew, who usually stayed out of it, asked if there was some sort of mistake. I didn't respond to any of them. And then Melanie sent me a voicemail. I played it once just to make sure I'd heard her right. You think this is over? You just made yourself the enemy of the family. Enemy, not sister. Not the person who paid for her son's education. Not the one who covered her bills for over a year. Just a villain now because I finally said no. It should have made me mad. Instead, it made things very, very simple. She wanted a war. She was going to get one. By the time I finished my morning coffee, Melanie had already fired her first public shot. Her Facebook status was a vague passive-aggressive masterpiece. Funny how the people with the most to give are the first to withhold. Betrayal always comes from those closest. Lesson learned. Dozens of likes. A string of comments from her usual backup dancers. Mostly old classmates, women from her book club, and people she hadn't seen in years. All commenting things like, you deserve better, babe. And cut the toxicity out. One woman I didn't even recognize wrote, family is just a word. Protect your peace. It was laughable. None of them knew who she was really talking about, but I did. And judging by the way, my cousin Rachel texted me a screenshot with a popcorn emoji and the words, guess someone didn't get their prom money. So did she. So, I didn't respond. I wasn't going to feed it. I told myself I wasn't even surprised. This was Melanie's favorite game, victimhood with a spotlight. I'd seen it before when her landlord evicted her. She had no warning. When Drew lost his job, she sacrificed everything. And when Caleb didn't get into NYU because the system is rigged, there was always someone to blame, and it was never her. But I could feel something shifting. And I think she felt it too because that same afternoon, she sent a group text, not just to me, to the entire family. She wrote, It's heartbreaking to realize how easily some people throw you away when they're done using you for their own ego. I hope no one else in this family ever finds themselves abandoned like I have. I sat there staring at my phone, waiting for someone to respond. Not because I needed them to defend me. I was long past that. But because I was curious, because I wanted to know how much of this family still bought into her drama. Nothing. Not one response. Not from our aunts. Not from our cousins. Not from anyone. Just silence. That told me everything. Later that night, I got a call from our mom. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't ask what happened. He just jumped right in. She said, "Melanie is very upset." She says, "You humiliated her in front of Caleb, and that this has caused a huge rift between him and Drew." I asked what humiliation she was talking about. All I did was tell her son to work for his prom money. Our mom just sighed and said, "I don't want to get in the middle of this. I just wish you two would stop fighting." But this wasn't a fight. A fight happens between equals. This was me drawing a line, and Melanie throwing a tantrum because she couldn't cross it anymore. I told her I'd already paid for Caleb's entire freshman year of college and had nothing left to give. She went quiet, then said something that caught me off guard. "You've done enough, but she's going through a lot." It sounded sympathetic, but to me it felt like a small crack in her armor. Our mom has always defended Melanie, always. But this time, she didn't scold me or beg me to fix things. She just sounded tired, like maybe she was finally starting to see it. The next day, Drew called me. That surprised me. He's usually the quiet one, polite, reserved, always a little checked out of the chaos. His message was simple. "Hey, I saw the mortgage payment didn't go through. Is everything okay?" I didn't reply. If Melanie wanted to paint me as the villain, then she could explain to her own husband why their mortgage was bouncing. Let her handle it for once. What nobody knew, not Drew, not Mom, not even Rachel, was that I'd been holding on to a nuclear option. About a month ago, Melanie and I had a phone call that spiraled. It was supposed to be about Caleb needing money for textbooks, but she got careless and said some ugly things about everyone, including our mom. She called her a burden, said she was useless unless there was food or a holiday involved. I'd never repeated it. Until now, it hadn't felt necessary. But when she called me the enemy of the family, when she tried to pit everyone against me after all I'd done, that changed everything. She wanted me to be the villain? Fine. But if I was going to play that role, I wasn't going to follow her script. I'd write my own point 2 days later. Drew left me a voicemail. His tone was calm, but tighter than usual, measured. He said he wanted to talk privately. I knew what it was about. The mortgage, Melanie's storm, maybe both. I didn't answer right away. I let it sit for a few hours, not because I was unsure, but because I wanted to be certain I wasn't acting purely out of spite. What I was holding wasn't gossip. It was a truth bomb that could wreck a marriage. For years, I told myself it wasn't my place. But that was before Melanie made me her personal villain. Before she weaponized Caleb. Before she tried to turn the whole family against me with one group text and a few dramatic status updates. So, I called Drew back. We didn't waste time. He asked if I'd canceled the mortgage autopay. I told him yes. He asked why. I told him the truth. The prom money, the tuition, the pressure, the manipulation. Then I paused. He was silent for a moment, and then said something I didn't expect. "Honestly, I don't blame you." He admitted he'd known something was wrong for a while, but hadn't realized how bad it had gotten between me and Melanie. I could hear it in his voice that he was trying to piece it together, trying to figure out if this was just a financial rift or if it went deeper. So I gave him what he wasn't ready for. I told him about the guy. Melanie had mentioned him in passing during that same phone call where she trashed our mom. She said something about needing a break from Drew, said she'd been talking to someone who actually listens. I pressed her, and she got flippant, said it was just a friend, someone from her gym. At the time, I didn't think much of it, just another one of her little emotional detours. But a few weeks later, Rachel saw her at a restaurant downtown with him. It wasn't subtle, and it wasn't just once. 2 more times after that, different places, always on nights she claimed she had yoga or a girls' night. Rachel told me because she thought Drew deserved to know. I told her it wasn't our place. But now, it was that I didn't go into detail with Drew. I just told him I thought he should know Melanie hadn't been entirely honest with him. That he might want to look at the nights she'd been busy, and that if he had questions, he shouldn't ask me. He should ask her. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. He just said thank you, and hung up. An hour later, Melanie called me 5 times in a row. I didn't answer. Then the text started. What did you say to Drew? Why are you doing this? You don't know the whole story. And then you just blew up my life. Are you happy now? I didn't reply to that one either. I just stared at it, because that was the first time I realized she wasn't just putting on another pity parade. She was actually panicking. The next day, I got a message from my Aunt Joan. Just a simple "heard what's going on. I'm proud of you." Then from my cousin Ellie. About time someone stood up to her. And then my dad called. Said he was hosting a dinner next weekend. Said everyone was invited, except Melanie. I didn't ask why. I didn't need to. Melanie had always believed that if she got loud enough, dramatic enough, manipulative enough, she could control the story. But now, the story wasn't hers anymore. 3 days after I spoke to Drew, everything went quiet. No texts, no calls, not even a cryptic post on Melanie's Facebook. That alone should have been suspicious, but I was too exhausted to care. I assumed she was regrouping, trying to figure out how to twist the truth into another version where she was the wounded hero. Then, on a Wednesday afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, like I always do. A few minutes later, the transcription came through. It was Caleb. He sounded nervous, not angry like before. His voice cracked as he said he needed to talk, that things were bad at home, that Drew wasn't speaking to his mom, that he'd overheard them yelling, and that his dad had left and didn't come back that night. Then he said something I never thought I'd hear from him in a million years. Caleb's message caught me off guard. This was the same kid who once called me a fake aunt and demanded $1,600 like I was Amazon Prime. Now he was asking for help. Part of me wanted to ignore him, let Melanie deal with her golden child. But another part, the part that remembered holding him as a toddler, told me to call him back, that we talked for 20 minutes. It was awkward. He didn't exactly apologize, but admitted he'd just been repeating what his mom told him. He sounded more like a kid than I'd ever heard. He said Drew hadn't been home in 2 days. Melanie cried all night and screamed at him in the mornings, and that she told him grandma's dead to her, and I'd get what's coming. That's when I knew she wasn't just spiraling. She was imploding and dragging him down with her. Then Caleb mentioned Drew had packed a bag and taken documents from the office drawer, their mortgage, taxes, even their prenup. Drew wasn't just leaving. He was preparing for war. That night Melanie finally texted me, a chaotic rant about me poisoning her family, being the favorite, and even dragging up Prom from 20 years ago. I ignored it and called Dad. He said, "She'll blame you until no one's left to listen." When I asked about Caleb, he said, "Then it's time she learns consequences." The next morning, I did what I never thought I would. I rescinded Caleb's $15,000 tuition payment. Legally I could. That night he called, panicked after getting the university email. I didn't yell. I just said, "Actions have consequences." By Friday, Melanie vanished from social media, Instagram, Facebook, even Pinterest gone. For her, silence meant she was cornered. Then Ellie called, whispering. Melanie had shown up at Grandma's, crying about betrayal, then left as suddenly as she came. Ellie also told me Drew had taken all the important documents and hired a lawyer. Melanie's worst nightmare, her husband moving toward divorce, was real. And ironically, it was Ellie, the cousin she always belittled, who connected him with legal help. Then Caleb called again, voice shaking. He said Drew was gone for good. He didn't want to be in that house anymore, and that his mom had completely lost it. Caleb said the words I never thought I'd hear. "I don't care about the tuition. I just want out." This was the same kid who once bragged he'd be a CEO by 24. Now he just sounded scared. I told him simply, "Then do better." That weekend we had dinner at my dad's. For the first time in years, it felt peaceful. No tension, no Melanie turning everything into her drama. Even my mom seemed different. Later, while we washed dishes, she asked quietly, "She said terrible things about me, didn't she?" I didn't answer. She already knew. On Tuesday, Rachel told me Caleb had moved in with Drew. No fight, no guilt trip, he just left. Drew focused on custody and let Melanie unravel. A few days later, the university refund hit my account. Done. Family dinners became normal again. Laughter, potlucks, no one walking on eggshells. Caleb even texted me twice. Once a photo at a job fair with the word "trying," and later, I didn't know how much she lied until I lived without her. I didn't reply. Some things don't need answers. Melanie went quiet. She deleted her socials, tried a GoFundMe that fizzled, and eventually disappeared. Drew filed for full custody and won. She didn't even show up to court. Caleb stayed with him, re-enrolled in school, and started moving forward.